I'm very excited to talk to you today about a program that I think is just one of the best things I've seen for MLSs and associations in a long time. And I'm really excited today to tell you that we have three exciting people with us. We have Rob Crane, who is the founder and the president of a great program called Down Payment Resource. He's going to tell you all about it. And we have two of my favorite MLS people, Mary Jo Cohen, who is the CEO of My Florida Regional MLS, one of the largest and most progressive MLSs in the country, and John Mosey, who also comes from an amazing MLS in the Midwest, North Star MLS. And he's going to talk to you about their success with Down Payment Resource down the road as well. So it should be fun. There is a text box on the side, so if anybody has any questions during the session, feel free to send them our way, and we'll be answering those toward the end. And with that, I think we'll get going. So Rob, if you could turn to the first page, that would be great. So I'm just going to just kind of get us into the conversation a little bit. And as some of you on this call may know, Wave Group and RE Technology work a lot with MLSs, and we do a lot of strategic plans, and we see that MLSs are really under siege in a lot of ways. There's so many things coming at the company so quickly, one of which is there's just a ton of competitive pressure out there. There's people offering tools at different prices. There's threats of different kinds of groups coming in and taking over MLS services. And so MLSs are all, importantly, trying to figure out the continued way to become more and more relevant to their members. In the good old days, it was pretty much just an MLS system. If you did a good MLS system and it was reliable and you could hold it up there, it was all good. That's not anywhere near what it takes anymore. Now there's, several types of core services that are offered, public records and showing appointment software and virtual tours, and it goes on and on. The list goes on and on. And one of the important things that I see many MLSs trying to do these days is, while it's really important for them to provide data and provide accuracy and provide amazing ways for agents and brokers to collaborate with one another, many of them are thinking about ways that the role of the MLS can be to help MLS subscribers succeed in their business. And some take on the role of helping agents connect more effectively with consumers in very valuable ways as well. And this program kind of does all of those things. But most importantly, what it really does is it helps improve the success, potential success of agents that belong to MLSs. And that, of course, is always the goal of any MLS. The other thing that we're seeing a lot of is that the definition of data that's provided by the MLS is ever expanding. Originally, it was pretty much just active listings. Then, of course, it became sold listings. And, of course, to MLSs or MLS subscribers, it's been that for a long time. But it's also become public records data. It's become listing syndication data. It's become a lot of different things. And this is just another type of data that can be provided, which is programs that are available in a certain market to help people be able to be successful. Now, just wanted to walk quickly through an example of kind of what we see happening with down payment assistance programs. If we all remember back just a few years ago, before public record software existed and before MLSs were offering that, there were, of course, public records available. They were available through a variety of sources, and agents could go to public, county court offices and things like that and find them. And but it was very difficult and not nearly as convenient as it could be. So public record software allowed agents and brokers to leverage that data in a much more effective way, not only having the data but able to manipulate it in important ways. And then the next step was an integration of public records into MLS systems, which has significantly increased the usage and relevance to the point now where most MLSs think of public records as pretty much a gotta-have. It's just as important, almost if not as important as the MLS system itself. And we're seeing the same thing happen with down payment assistance programs. In many markets, they are kind of, again, available just like public records were many years ago, all over the place. And yes, if an agent is proactive, they can go find them. But it's not a simple process. It doesn't make it easy. It's certainly, some agents may have figured out how to do it. Many may not have. So what we're seeing is that by the MLSs that have adopted the idea of sort of aggregating and automating the methods for finding down payment assistance relative to a specific listing, it's becoming kind of a gotta-have service in many places. Because, again, what it's doing is actually helping agents become more successful. And any tool that will do that certainly will become much more valuable over time. So that's just a quick backdrop to the story. I'm going to actually now have Rob Crane kind of tell you his inspiration for how he came up with this concept and how we think it's really helping people. Go ahead, Rob.
Thanks very much, Marilyn, and good afternoon, everybody. Appreciate everybody tuning in. looking at the data, we see a huge opportunity in front of us to expand the pool of qualified home buyers. About 18 million renter households actually have the income today to buy a home, subject to their creditworthiness and, of course, access to a down payment. By all measures, all the surveys we see show that about 60% of renters say they want to buy. And then you've got 76 million echo boomers out there that are just in their early household formation years. And the U.S. Census Bureau predicts that by the time they reach their mid-30s, 67% want to buy a home, and that'll eventually create 35.5 million new home ownership households. And then add to that the boomerang buyers. Those are the people that unfortunately went through foreclosure several years ago. They've had time to reestablish credit, and they're tiptoeing back into the marketplace, and they're buying more conservatively too. So everybody knows the biggest obstacle to home ownership has always been saving for the down payment, and that's never been truer than today. Solutions are available, as Marilyn was saying, in the form of down payment assistance and other home ownership programs, and in fact they've been with us a long time. I know because during my 30-plus years as a realtor and a mortgage lender, I and others like me struggled to keep up with the dozens of programs in each of our marketplaces. So knowledge like this empowers people to make better home buying choices and helps realtors to sell more homes. So as the internet became the place for consumers to start their home search or even researching about buying a home, it seemed like a good opportunity to use my experience to provide greater access to these programs. So that's what we've done. The couple that you're looking at is Anna and Jared Rendell, and their realtor fortunately knew about these programs and had access to down payment resource and helped them get into a home. We'd hope to be able to show you a short video clip, but GoToWebinar wouldn't let us do that, so we'll send that out as a follow-up. And the important thing about that is, they're not talking about their tool, they're talking about how great their realtor was. The realtor was the hero. And they keep saying in the video when you see it, ask your realtor, ask your realtor. Your realtor has access to information and to things you don't know about. And I think that says a lot just by itself. So literally there are billions of dollars out there to solve this problem. Yet, as you can see, that from NAR's 2012 profile of home buyers, just how underutilized these programs are. And when you think about it, even of that 76% who used their savings to buy a home for a down payment, that a lot of them could have been better served to save some of that savings, hang on to it for emergencies. And I love this quote from a realtor that actually recently got an email from this realtor and had just closed a deal where their customer was able to get down payment assistance, because it really sums up the lack of awareness and understanding about these programs among consumers. And I really don't think what he's saying here about more people believe that if you forward an email to 20 friends you'll get $1,000, then would believe that they could get this kind of assistance out there. And so realtors who want to help buyers with these programs need to keep track of confusing and contradictory rules from all kinds of program providers at the city, county, state level. Their federal programs, even those are distributed maybe at a local level, sometimes down to the neighborhood level. So, up until now, they've been relying on communications from either their lender partners, housing finance agencies directly, or just word of mouth. So, it's no wonder that it's a struggle to keep up with. The potential impact of these programs is huge. Right now in our system, we're tracking over 1,500 actively funded programs. So we're actually tracking more programs, but over 1,500 are active today. And that represents, we're contacting almost 1,000 agencies monthly to update that information. And contrary to what some people think, it is available. There's something, usually more than one program, available in every community, no matter where you are. As we've, over the last few years, as we've rolled this out and analyzed all kinds of MLS databases, listing databases all over the country, large markets and small, we find that consistently somewhere between 60 and 80% of an MLS's active residential listings are eligible for one or more of these programs. And even in California, we learned recently, once we launched there, that everybody knows about the state budget problems, but they have, we're tracking 240 actively funded programs from about 112 different agencies, and that's up from 180 just in mid-February. So gathering and updating this information is very labor intensive. It's a manual process. There's, unfortunately, there's no API to plug into to automatically feed us the data. So that can kind of picture what we're talking about, I'm going to show a few screenshots, and then after John and Mary Jo get a chance to talk, Sean from our group is going to do a little more comprehensive demo. But just so you can understand and see what it looks like, Down Payment Resource finds and captures and publishes and updates all of these programs and integrate it into your MLS data. So when your agents log in and they're doing a search of homes, when the search results come back, we will flag any property that's eligible for one or more of these programs. The agents can click on the programs, get a summary of the programs, and those are programs available specifically for that property based on location and sales price. And if they want to click on next steps, they can get more details. What are the benefits, the maximum assistance, and then most importantly, what are the easy next steps? Because we're not trying to convert everybody to subject matter experts. We're really just trying to automate the process. Raise a flag and say, here's an opportunity to sell a home, and what do you do next? And then agents also have the ability to enable the flag on their IDX sites, agents and brokers, which turns DPR into a powerful lead generation tool. And then it also allows consumers, when they see this, because as we were pointing out, most consumers just have no idea that this kind of help is out there. So they're searching online, they see the flag, they start clicking on it, they start to get an idea of the concept. They're invited to answer about 8 questions to find out if they're eligible. And then the system will tell them how many programs that they might be eligible for, and then they can click a button to ask for details. They fill out a web form, an email goes to them to confirm it, and an email goes to the site owner to give them a heads up. And Sean will show you more of that later. But these are pictures of people, again, who found out they could buy a home. These are actual buyers because their agent used the tool. And the point here is that there's more than one demographic that can benefit from down payment assistance. These people represent young professionals, single parents, and even retirees. So there's really something for a lot of people. There's a lot of question or sometimes misconceptions. What are the household income limits to qualify for these programs? It can run up to 120% of area median income or higher. And so that equates to household incomes as much as $90,000, $100,000 a year, and sometimes, depending on the, if it's a high-cost market, even higher than $100,000 household income. So offering this valuable information about these programs can help raise the overall image of realtors. It positions them as knowledgeable and the market expert, the local real estate expert. And some of our customers have been able to receive some good benefits. We'll include a link to this video too. This was in Northern Nevada where they had great TV coverage when they launched it last June. So we're really proud to have some of the best MLSs in the country as customers, and the list is growing. Right now, about 1/3 of all NAR members have access to the tool. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Marilyn.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Rob, for that overview. Every time I hear about this program, I get more excited about it because I just love to find areas where MLSs and associations can not only provide valuable tools, but actually help realtors generate more business. It just does my heart good. Anyway, I thought I'd open with Mary Jo and John now. They've both participated. Both of their MLSs are already active, so just thought it would be helpful for you guys to hear from your fellow peers about what they're doing and how they're doing it and why they think it's valuable. So maybe we can start with you, John. Why did you believe the program was good for your subscribers?
Well, the opportunity 3 years ago jumped out at me, particularly because the market in our part of the world was in desperate straits. And one of the immediately obvious values of this program is that it has the potential to make sales happen where they weren't. It's creating that opportunity for the person who couldn't come up with down payment money to get into the home ownership market. And what we looked at was essentially the transit of the cash that became available from the down payment assistance programs across a closing table. It was going right into the commission that was feeding the families of the realtors who were struggling at that time. So the obvious benefit was it added income. It added opportunity for new transaction activity to occur in our marketplace.
That's great.
It also had a side benefit, I thought, of being extraordinarily positive in terms of a PR opportunity in a period of time when the real estate industry was lumped in with lenders and others as in part responsible for the housing crash.
Gotcha. Mary Jo, how about in your case? Why did you believe the program was good for your subscribers?
Well, I think we thought a lot like John thought, although because this program has kind of something for everyone in it, and that's why we were so interested in it. We, coming from Florida, our market there has been very traumatized, as everyone knows, as a lot of other places across the country. One way to move that inventory is to get people into homes that didn't think they could afford them. So, you know, it was just a win-win all the way around. The other piece that we really found attractive that would be helpful to our members, to our subscribers, is the fact that Down Payment Resources is doing all the homework for them, so they don't have to. They have the resources at their fingertips without having to, you know, spend a whole lot of time going out there and trying to research everything. And they do a great job of keeping that data current. So they, you know, that's mostly because of the market conditions as well. So ditto for John.
And Mary Jo, in your market, what's your sense of what percentage of your listings are available? Rob told us that it's usually about 60 to 80%. Does that hold up in your market as well?
No, I think absolutely it does. You know, we cover most of Central Florida, so there's a lot of diversity in the geography there and different prices. But yes, I think probably we're at easily right in the middle of that 70, 72, 73% of the listings could match up with a potential buyer for down payment assistance, absolutely.
That's huge. And John, in your market and Minneapolis and the outstanding areas,
yeah, we cover most of the state of Minnesota and part of western Wisconsin, and we're at the high end of that range. In fact, a year or so ago, I think we were projecting somewhere around 82% of our inventory.
Wow,
would qualify.
That's amazing.
It is.
And amazing. You kind of think of Minneapolis as being a little bit more high-end market, but it still holds up true there. That's really exciting to hear. Well, John, I'm going to ask you a question. I know in your market you have, you know, a Diner Realty and some other very large brokers who are the pretty much the classic definition of the large broker who does not want the MLS to level the playing field. And as such, in your market and many others, you know, those types of markets generally do not offer as many services just because the brokers really don't want the MLS to do that. How did this one work, and why was this different potentially than some of the other services that you've looked at?
Well, I think it was a two-parter. One, as I mentioned before, our market was in desperate straits, and large firm, small firm, medium firm, everybody had agents who were struggling. And I think our large firms here looked at it and said, what can we do that will increase the opportunity for our agents and affiliates to do business, because they were hurting severely. The other thing that I think the larger brokers recognized was the lead generation potential of the program. We're a really strong IDX market. There's over 3,000 IDX websites active in our service area. The big guys have invested enormous sums of money in making theirs the go-to sites in the state, and they've incorporated down payment resource as a feature that brings consumer traffic to them, and creates bigger opportunities for those companies to gather a larger share of the market.
Gotcha. Okay, so they did that leveling the playing field thing didn't come up on this one. They saw enough benefit that they didn't worry about that at all, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think it was a classic example of them coming to the conclusion that they were better positioned to gain benefit from this kind of program than virtually anyone else in the marketplace.
That's good to hear. That's exciting news. Mary Jo, your market is obviously a little different. You have a much more diverse broker base, and you're a little bit newer to the program. But are you hearing good things from smaller brokers too about this? That they think it's a good idea?
We certainly haven't had any pushback, and along these lines. And because of that diversity, we have big cities, and we have Disney World, and we have beaches, and we have agricultural and tourism, big, small, lakes, everything. And so there's all those different kinds of properties that fit right in, the USDA and all those others. So we have not had anyone feel that this was not a great program. I wish I could say that as many of our brokers have incorporated the IDX solution, because we consistently point right to the success in John's market. But we see that starting to take off as well and grow. And once it's on their IDX websites, I think that even more so do they see the value. We also have it on our consumer site, so that if a consumer comes to our site, they can click through and they'll eventually get hooked up with the listing agent.
So that's great. That's another way to encourage people on the MLS consumer sites to make those sites even more valuable to the members as well. That's great. Just another reason for people to click through. And just a quick aside on that for those who are on the call that have consumer websites. One of the things that we've seen is we've been doing list hub analyses, is that in just about every case that we've seen, the MLS click-through rates is number 1 or number 2 in the marketplace. So having something like DPR can make that click-through even stronger. So it's a great way to think about a way to strengthen your MLS site if you have one. Just another question about brokers. The program, of course, doesn't necessarily help you if you've got a $4 or $5 million listing with luxury. With brokers that focus on that part of the market, do you see any pushback? Do they say, well, this isn't for me, or don't they really care? John, maybe in your market, what do you see?
We haven't heard any kind of complaint or pushback from that end. In relative terms, the cost of the service is pretty nominal to incorporate as core. And, for somebody focused on the luxury market, this is inconsequential.
Gotcha. Okay, Mary Jo, any concerns in your market with that?
No, and I think we're very much like John. We've had a couple. We've contacted brokers, and they've said, well, we're in the luxury market. We only do beachfront properties, and they're not going to qualify, so we're not interested. But they certainly aren't against the program at all. Okay, good. That's good to hear. So, what have you heard so far? I mean, it's difficult because so many of the programs, they click through and they click away from your sites to actually tell exactly what's going on. But what kind of anecdotes are you hearing in your markets? Maybe we'll start with you, Mary Jo. Well, we're starting to see, it's really difficult for us to track the actual sales that come from this, but we're starting to get tweets and information back from buyers, or not buyers, but our agents who've used the program and are really excited about it. And our leadership is very excited about it, because this is one of those unique programs where the member, the subscriber, the participant, the agent, whatever, is consistently in the loop. It's not like we're catching a consumer and then they go out on their way and find their own financing. So that single flow of keeping our members in the middle of the transaction is really the most attractive, one of the most attractive pieces.
Wonderful. Okay, John, how about you? What are you hearing any good anecdotes? We saw the one video.
We're like Mary Jo. It's a difficult program to do the cost-benefit analysis. In that we haven't devised a way or come up with a way where we can actually identify where the down payment assistance has come into play to help the transaction occur. But what I found interesting is it's kind of like an anecdotal level. Our board's made up of representation from the large brokers, of course, but right down the line, all size brokers and some agents, of course. And when we had the down payment assistance program come up for review by our board, there was no discussion other than we're going to keep doing this. This has been a positive, not only in terms of the expected incremental sales activity, but also in terms of the convenience. You mentioned it early on, as we aggregate and automate, or the program does, programs that beforehand were recorded by, I think, the Minnesota Housing Corporation, and published once a month on 3 pages of foolscap or something, and somebody in respective office would have the control of that resource, maybe, and if it got posted on a bulletin board, that would be where you go to look for it. And here we've actually attached it to the properties themselves. And then there was one other byproduct that I think was that encouraged them. The big brokers are looking at it as a lead source, but everybody looked at it as a positive PR opportunity. We're communicating to the consumer market as realtors that we are a resource. This realtor community is a resource for information that is difficult to find and understand, but it can help you get into the home ownership state that you aspire to. And all of the statistics show that people are still aspiring to that. They're just finding it difficult to get over that down payment hump. So we looked at it early on, and I think it's been corroborated, is that it's been a PR positive for us and for the industry.
So it sounds like a win-win. It doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of downsides here. It's just again, another way to make MLSs more valuable to their customer. That's, of course, what we're all trying to do. Let me just ask a quick question about the market dynamics. Of course, have changed. You mentioned, John, when you started 3 years ago, the market was much weaker than it is today. And in many markets, we have just the opposite problem we had a couple years ago, where now inventory is tight, and it's there's multiple offers on homes and things like that. Do you see the role of this program changing or evolving at all as the market dynamics change? Maybe I'll start with you, John, on that one.
I don't. There is an inventory issue, but interestingly, on the weekend I was driving around, and I had seen some properties in the local market, revenue properties, opportunities in that regard that I'd looked at myself some months back, and I still see them on the marketplace. And they all qualify under this program, at least the properties do, for down payment assistance, and they're still on the market. And it's a question of I think of there always being a need, because there's always going to be a buyer, a potential buyer, who has that need. It gets them into the market. And once you're, and this is, I think, the long view of it, is once you've got them in the market, once they've bought that starter place, there's the lifestyle evolution that results in future sales. Their life circumstances change. So it's really, I think, a valuable tool in order to get people into the game.
Well, it seems
they'll
like
continue to play.
When someone's in their time of need, like you say, they just can't get over that hurdle of the down payment. And if an agent comes in and helps someone in that time of need, it's a really important connection that can be created with an agent that hopefully would never be severed unless something really went wrong in the relationship. But loyal to people that help us when we really need them the most. So it sounds like a great idea. Mary Jo, do you see any dynamics changing in your market with the inventory situation changing that'll make a difference?
Actually, no. A lot along the lines of what John said, but also, Florida's still way up there in the foreclosure world, cloud, whatever you want to, and those are put often into REOs, and those are great opportunities for first-time home buyers and for getting some assistance. So there's always going to be, even as great as the market is now, people are going to eventually start moving up, and that's going to create some more inventory. So I don't see that there's ever going to not be a time when there are people that want to buy their first home and can use a little help to get that moving. So I don't expect it to at all.
And Rob, to your point, you said that it's not even just first times is probably a big part of it, but it also can be people that are single parents or retirees, people that still have issues with affordability. So
absolutely,
that's great. So you two industry pundits, two of my favorites, what would be your words of advice that you would give to any MLSs that are on the call today, just considering it, whether it be to help their board understand it better, or what's your word of advice to them? Maybe we'll start with you, Mary Jo.
I think that what really sold our board of directors on this was one of the great things that Rob and his team did for us was they did a pre-analysis of all the programs that were available in our area, and I think that was hugely surprising, even to our leadership. So that was.
Uh-oh.
Damn cell phones.
John, oh, there you go. We missed you you cut out for about 10 seconds there, Mary Jo.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Well, but basically what I said is what we did and what sold our directors with almost, once we finally got their attention about this program was to have Rob and his team came into our market and did us, took all of our different market areas and put together approximately, all the different programs that would be out there and did a test on our database, and we were able to show right up front the impact that the program could have. So, the best advice I have is to let Rob and his team do their homework. Let them come into your market. Give them access to your data and let them tell you what's out there, because that is really something that will just knock their socks off. And that. And also the piece that's so critical is it's great PR, definitely, it's a win-win, but it keeps our members in that cycle. And as John said before, they make a sale, there's a new homeowner in the market, and this is the key piece for us, is the member stays in the circle. And those two things, let them do their homework and share all the advantages. That's what we had to do.
And John, any other thoughts to add to that?
Yeah, we benefited as well from that analysis of our inventory, but I think the process was interesting in that I think a lot of boards they struggle with inertia and with this sense of spending members' money in a fashion that's going to be appreciated. That the end result is adding value to the working lives of the subscriber. We had some people sit down and look at it, and we had the expected responses. Like, oh, do we really need this, or who actually uses this, or is there enough interest in the program to make it worthwhile? We could get it for free. We get it for free now. All of the standard objections. So I asked people, based on the notion of it generating additional incremental sales, commissions for people that needed them, its lead generation potential, its PR potential, is to examine their reasons why they wouldn't do it and get those objections out in the open and on the table and deal with them factually and directly. And the more we did that, you could see the scales falling from people's eyes, for want of a better description. And we also brought in an advisory group that said, okay, this is how it looks, or how it looks like it'll work. What do you think? How could we tweak this in some fashion that would make it even more valuable to you? And there were some good suggestions, and I think, Rob, I think you incorporated those, and we built on them mutually, and they've all turned out to be positives that have really cemented the use of the program in our market.
Wonderful. That's great. Great advice, guys. Is there anything else that Mary Jo or John you'd like to add before we turn over and we'll show quickly what the program looks like?
Go ahead, John. Do you have told what? You haven't.
You don't have to.
John hasn't even told a joke yet. I can't.
Okay, that's all right, John. Go for the joke.
Yeah.
That's important.
No, I had a rough night's sleep. That's all. No, just try it. You'll like it.
Yeah,
it is. I think it's one of the best things we've done in recent times.
Yeah, and you know what? We feel the same way, and if anybody ever wants to have a conversation or hear how what our relationship is like with Rob and his team, or anything we could do to help, please don't ever hesitate to contact me, because we are that committed to this product.
That's great. Just one quick follow-up question for you from your perspective. Was the program pretty easy to implement? Mary Jo?
Oh,
for us, that was one of the obstacles that we had to get past in the beginning, but I think it's a lot better now. I think Rob could probably answer that question better. But there were some MLS vendors that hadn't yet incorporated DPR so deeply into the system. So we had to wait a little bit for that to make that happen. But I think that most of the main MLS vendors are on board with it at this point. So that was an obstacle that we had then, but I think it's much less of a challenge now.
Gotcha. And John, from your perspective?
Yeah, I said painless, and it was. Part of that was because we control our own database, so we're not dependent on a vendor. However, because at the user interface the vendor is involved, we're fortunate in dealing with our vendor. I won't give them a plug right at the moment, but they've just been excellent in every regard in terms of being able to adapt to what we need. So we did the work on the back end of the database side, and they were able to incorporate it readily into the user interface side.
Perfect. That's great. Okay, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking your time. I know you guys are in the middle of another session today. I really appreciate that. We're going to turn it now back over to Down Payment Resource, and they're going to show us just a quick overview of how it actually looks when you're in the system. So, Rob, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Marilyn, and Mary Jo and John. Thank you both very much for taking your time and sharing your thoughts. So I'm going to turn it over to Sean Moss. Sean is our Vice President of Operations and Customer Support, and he's going to run through a live demo. So we like to work without a net sometimes.
All right, thanks, Rob, and hello, everybody. Let's see. So what I wanted to do was just very quickly show you how this works in the MLS system, and then by extension some of the other tools and features that come with it. So I'll keep this quick, but basically we are taking the active single-family listing database and processing it against our database of all of the programs, state, county, city, local, neighborhood, nonprofit, that exist in any given market, and then we match all of the properties that are eligible based on location and sales price, list price, to all of the programs for which it would qualify, whose jurisdiction matches that location, and the list prices of these properties don't exceed maximum sales prices of all these programs. So like we said earlier, 60 to 80% of listings is what we see in just about every market. So just a mock search here. I picked a couple cities around greater Minneapolis, 130 to 140. I could do any number of price ranges up to 250, even 300,000, and even higher in many markets, high-cost markets. So what I get is the list of properties. So I'm a realtor. I'm looking for searches. I'm looking for properties. So this little house in hand icon, this is the DPR icon. When I click that for any given listing, well, first of all, the fact that it's there tells me that that property has been processed and is eligible for one or more programs. So I click that button, and what I get is the list of programs that property, based on, again, its location and its list price, would be eligible for, or may be eligible for. I have support options at all times, and here's my list of programs. So as a realtor, as a member of your MLS, I can scroll through this. I can check out the overview here. So there's a local program, a couple of state programs. This is a state partnership. There's one that's not currently available, but we're still tracking it because they may get funds again down the road. I can click on next steps for any one program, and as a realtor, I have access to all the details of that program, everything that makes this actionable for myself and the buyer. So benefits, next steps, this is the most critical piece here, and it's the most common question. This property is eligible, or my buyer is eligible, what now? Well, you've got access to all the participating lenders, including any of your own partners that may be on the list, all the education providers. Many of these programs require a homebuyer education course. These are links directly to the program administrator or the funder of the program so that application can be made, funds can be reserved, the education requirements can be met. Essentially, action can be taken by the realtor, by the home buyer, or the realtor can provide these resources to the home buyer. The program flyer right on the agency's website, contact information so they can get questions answered. And then back to the list. So for every listing that's eligible, and let me just go back to the list here. For every listing that's eligible, you'll see that icon. For every icon you click, you get the list of programs that property is eligible for. And then you can, as a realtor, drill down. Here's a couple local programs in another city, the same state programs. Remember, they're statewide, so they're going to show up everywhere. And that, plus a few other programs, is how there's coverage for every market. There's literally something everywhere, every corner of the country. I can also email these to my client. Hey, you know, type a message. Found a few listings that are DPR eligible. You know, check out these programs. Check out their websites. Let's figure out how to take the next step. Now, what I can also do is access the member homepage for DPR. This is part of the MLS integration, the core service here. I can perform ad hoc searches. I can manage client profiles. I can use the pricing widget. This was originally a listing tool. You know, this can be used for selling, not just for buying homes. I can plug in an address and zip code. DPR will map the property. I can toggle the price here. So I can figure out, okay, at $260,000, how many programs would a buyer of this property be eligible for? I can market the property accordingly. If I go up to $270,000, if I list the property at $270,000, okay, maybe I crossed the sales price threshold, which is common. There's one in every market, or there's several in every market. But you'll know if I list it at $270,000, maybe there's only one program available. But if I drop it to $260,000, there's 5 or 6 programs available to buyers of the property. All right, so, and there's a bunch of other tools, including if your members have an IDX website, a searchable website, the IDX setup is all automated and integrated. There's a setup PDF here that goes to the IDX provider, and they pick a graphic and it shows up on websites. Like, for example, here's a search on an IDX website. So I click, or I did a search here just in Minneapolis, 200 to 210. Okay, so if I want to, let's say, check out this Shoreview Avenue property. All right, let's look at the details. I like this property. I'm a buyer on an IDX website, on a broker's website. So I load up this property. I'm looking at the details. Oh, look, down payment assistance may be available. This is fed by the IDX feed going out, including that DPR eligibility field, so that on an IDX website, DPR will show up and will look for a consumer like it does for your members inside the MLS. Now, the workflow is a little different, and I'll show you that in a moment here. Another piece of this, again, the DPR eligibility field is there. You could make it searchable. One thing Mary Jo mentioned is that they put this on their consumer site. So here's her consumer site. I did an Orlando search for 150 to 160. And if I check out some of these properties, let's look at Tangerine Street. That's a nice little property. And right there, big and visible, top and center. Down payment assistance, or you may be eligible. Find out now. The consumer clicks it. And actually, I can show you this, but I have to log out of everything. Bear with me for a moment. A consumer would never be logged into DPR or the MLS system. All right, so I'm a consumer. I want to find out, okay, the property's eligible. What about me? So I answer a couple of questions. What's my household size? What's my household income? And as I do this, DPR will start generating the number of programs that property may be eligible for. And first-time homebuyer status, special circumstances. What if I'm a veteran? What if there's a disabled individual in the household? So 14 programs, right? This is City of Orlando. But remember, state programs, county programs, the local city programs, if there are any, nonprofits that operate in the market, USDA is built in. There are a number of other national programs built in. There's a lot of opportunity out there. So as a consumer, though, what I'm doing here is clicking this Ask a Specialist button, and I'm taken to a contact form. On the MLS searchable site, the public site. That information goes to the listing agent. They get the lead. Now back to the IDX site. This would go to the site owner. If they click DPR here, fill out the same information. We already know the property information. We already know it's eligible because that's been processed through the MLS. So again, plug in some information here. Now this is a different market, but still 6 programs from this property in Minneapolis. Now, the last thing I want to show you is the client portal. This is one of the most trafficked pieces of down payment resource. If I emailed my client a few listings from the MLS system, it's going to show up in an email like this. I'm going to click this as a consumer, and I want to know what I'm eligible for. Maybe the realtor sends a couple of listings or sets up an automated prospecting search. You can auto prospect even with DPR. You can make DPR searchable so that members could set up a search where only properties in city of XYZ between X and Y sales prices that are DPR eligible would go out to clients. So I get this email, oh cool, here's a couple I like in a couple of different cities, and click DPR, again as a consumer via your client portal or your prospect portal, and a little information about DPR, click Get Started Now, and the consumer can search for programs that they may be eligible for, knowing that the property is eligible. Click on View Programs. Now, when they're already working with your member, we open up the access a little bit. So on an IDX website or the MLS public website, it's a prospecting tool. Here, it's building the bridge, closing the awareness gap, and ultimately closing the down payment gap. And here's a local program, some state programs, so that buyer knows that they and the property, because they enter their own home buyer eligibility criteria, may be eligible for some of these programs, and the buyer can drill down. Next steps, here's what I do next. I'm going to go sign up for my education course with the nonprofit that offers the course. I'm going to look at the city's community development webpage where this program is housed, and I can contact the city's housing and zoning coordinator. That's the person that the public contacts to ask questions, apply, reserve funds, and go through the process. So that's a real quick drill down, and with that, Rob, I will pass it back to you, and here you go.
Well, thanks, John. That was really helpful, and we've gotten a bunch of questions while you were talking, so I'm going to just read those, and I guess Rob or and you guys can answer these for him. The first one was, it looks like the program filters for properties that are eligible. Is there a way to put in a customer or client's info, i.e. their income level or their family size, and have that applied to the search? In our area, many of these programs have income level caps. Is it possible to do that?
Yeah, that was a mouthful, but
Yeah, well, sorry.
I mean, because we do filter for income. When the consumer enters their information, whether it's from the IDX site or whether a realtor is doing an ad hoc search for that consumer, they will put in their household income, and that will be part of the filter. So that's not a problem. I think if I understood the first part of the question, that's kind of a phase 2, and it involves work because it involves work not just on our end, but on the MLS vendor's end. In other words, we've kind of referred to it as a reverse search. So a consumer enters their information and says, all right, I like this program, the Come Home to Edina program, because it has $50,000 towards down payment, whatever. So now I want to search only listings that are specific for that program. That part we haven't done yet, and again, it's going to have to be done in cooperation with an MLS vendor, for each MLS vendor. Now, as Sean was saying, you can do a search, based on, if the site owner enables it, you can do a search and say, click Show Me Only Listings with DPR, and then whatever the other search criteria already on the website or on the IDX site, area, all the things, all the criteria that a buyer might have. You can narrow it down that far, but we actually haven't done it where we say, let a buyer search for, for listings for one program. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay. There was another question. Is this only available on an IDX feed? My thought is it looks like it's available in the MLS and on an IDX and on MLS sites. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Another quick one, are there any other programs available for new construction?
Most of these, in fact, I can't think off the top of my head of any programs that would exclude new construction.
Okay.
The primary criteria is location and maximum sales price. There may be programs specific for new construction in targeted areas, but I don't think new construction would be excluded from any programs.
Okay. Here's just a more practical question. I believe you told me this, but does DPR now work with all MLS systems? The particular person that's asking has the Paragon system?
Yes, we have integrated with Paragon, and we have integrated with pretty much all the major systems, and within them there are different products. So as Mary Jo was alluding to earlier, now that we've kind of had the first one or two integrations with almost all of the systems, then it gets easier for the vendor, for their MLS vendor, and for us, and therefore for the MLS.
Gotcha. Here's another question. You've generated a lot of interest, guys. Does DPR research our local programs, and how do they find them? So when you would go, like when you went to Mary Jo's market, for example, did Mary Jo give you the programs, or did your group do the research to find out where they were?
Yeah, I'm going to let Sean do that because that's
Okay.
part of his area of specialty. He runs. That's part of what he runs is that team. So Sean.
Yeah, basically what we do is we have a team of people that historically would go into a market upon expression of interest, and we would start at the state level, find out what the state had, and every state has programs. They all have a housing finance agency or something like it. Then drill down into the counties where that basically defined the jurisdiction of the MLS, and then all the cities within those counties, so that we captured the state level programs, anything at the county, and that would include, for nonprofits that have a regional presence maybe, and then all the city and local programs. Look for nonprofits, leverage the relationships we built with those housing finance agencies along the way to detect or uncover still more programs. And then once we do that, they're all uploaded, they're all live, and then they're maintained on a monthly basis. So again, leveraging those relationships with all these almost 1,000 housing finance agencies now to keep the information updated as we go. Now recently we've expanded coverage nationwide, so we literally cover about 80 of, well, the 80 biggest markets in the country, plus all of the states, some national programs, some regional and national nonprofits, and still more MSAs that were already sort of grandfathered in because we had customers. But we go out basically and research all of this, and then ongoing we maintain all of this information.
Gotcha. Here's just a bit of a build on that question. There's, as we saw, that looks like, and you just mentioned, lots of different sources of funding. What's your feeling? Is there a risk of this money drying up?
No. I mean, there's always risks in everything, but the reason I'm so adamant about that is because, in the last few years, as the dynamics have changed, and I mean dynamics by, the technical way things are funded, to state and federal fiscal constraints. Number one, most of these, or not all of these programs, are funded by by taxpayer money. So that's
Okay.
number one. Number
Okay.
two, and I think this is kind of goes to the an example, is that for example, a lot of programs have been traditionally financed through tax-free municipal bonds, and as that market became less attractive for a number of reasons, these housing finance agencies and the investment banks who helped them with this stuff got very creative, and they've made it work even better with taxable bond funding. And what we've seen as a result of that, we've seen markets where the housing finance agency is doing more funding than ever by doing it with taxable bonds. It gives them a more, a kind of a circulating or a very liquid source of funding, and because it's not tax-free bonds, the programs come with fewer restrictions, so it kind of takes some of the shackles off the agency. They can drop the first-time home buyer requirement, raise the income limits. So it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Housing finance is, and so there are a lot of smart people who are very adaptable and very creative, and so we see them coming on very strong.
Gotcha. Now, to that point, I just got a question that said, in our county, funds have dried up. If that is the case, since you update monthly, will that funding source be removed? I think I saw that you leave them on and just say that they're not active at the moment for in the goal that they may come get another source of funding. Is that true?
Yeah, Sean?
Yeah, the answer technically is that depends. We have 3 statuses in
Like
DPR
always,
for
software.
Yeah. Well, and we understand the volatility in certain markets and how these programs work, but we basically have 3 statuses. There is active, meaning it's funded and available to consumers. There is inactive, which means it is not currently funded, but they expect funding, and the program is not going away. It is just currently unavailable. And then there is a wait list status for programs that expect funding soon and maybe are taking wait lists or exhausted a first round and are waitlisting the second round. Now, if it doesn't fit one of those, then yes, we will remove the program. If the program itself intends to dissolve or disappear, if they intend to come back to the market, we'll put it in inactive or waitlist status, whichever one is relevant, and hold on to it. And that can be a tickler for future opportunities too, and it keeps it at least at the back of the mind as a coming opportunity while it's not funded.
Okay. Well, here's an interesting question. Is DPR selling the service to anybody other than Realtor MLSs, specifically people like Zillow or Trulia or third parties?
At this point, we have not, but we're leaving options open. We want to be, we're just, I guess, probably best to say that our options are open. We feel like the more buyers, more consumers that are educated, the more homes they'll buy. So ultimately, everybody's helps, but we're also, sensitive to different market considerations and different interests. So, and then we also have recently launched our first trial with a mortgage lender, a proof of concept trial. Now, obviously anything that is not, something like that is not going to have MLS data in it. Or if we had a consumer portal, it's not going to have MLS data in it. So.
Well, speaking on behalf of the MLSs, and guys jump in if you disagree, I would guess that they would prefer that you keep it with MLSs and IDX. But that's okay, because they want to have more expertise than anyone else. Here's another question. To what extent is NAR involved in the program?
I guess it's an indirect connection because CAR launched a version of it. Again, they're not an MLS, so it's not integrated with MLS data the way we've shown, but it has that consumer piece. So any of their agents or realtors or consumers can go to the site, enter some information, and do a search based either on a specific property address that they might have or a general search. So they say, I'm looking in this neighborhood or this city or county. So they're obviously a member of NAR, but that's the only connection.
Gotcha. Okay. And question: does the system work with Repatoni, or has it been integrated with? Yes.
Yes, it has been.
Okay. Couple more, and then I think we'll be good. One of them was just a general question about how does the pricing model work, and is it available only to MLSs and associations, or can individual agents and brokers purchase the program as well?
Well, we have not done it on a retail level for individual agents. Our preference is always to we always approach the MLS first because that's our preference. If the MLS doesn't want to do it or can't do it or whatever, we have started some trials with doing it, or licensing it directly with brokers. So that's a slightly different business model. We always give the MLS the first shot at it.
Okay. And can you describe a little bit how the business model works?
Yes, there's a one-time setup fee, and then there is a monthly subscription fee. And I can't we can't price it per member per month the way so many services are. And the reason we can't is because every marketplace is a different size and therefore has a different number of programs, a different number of agencies, because that's our heavy lifting, as I was saying earlier, that this is not an automated, we don't get a data feed for these programs. We do it manually. So so really we analyze the marketplace so the prospective MLS can see what their opportunity is, but we can see what our level of effort is, and we price it based on that.
Gotcha. Okay. Just one more question, and then I think we're finished. Sean, I think you might have shown some things, but what kind of programs does DPR provide to the MLS to help with promoting the program and getting adoption among the members?
Well, this is Sean. If you're asking me, I don't know if Tracy's on. She'd probably be the best to answer that. She's our VP of Marketing, but I can tell you that we provide, of course, ongoing support. And then we have done an enormous amount of collaboration on special events, PR events. We also put together a monthly, what we call marketing toolkit, and that's delivered to every customer. It includes that most recent month's top stories, top articles, not just about DPR, but industry, not industry news, but housing news related to down payment assistance programs, home ownership programs, the things required of buyers to participate. It also includes a snapshot of monthly traffic through all workflows in DPR for that customer, as well as a few other resources. So that's a monthly resource. We meet quarterly just to review status, identify priorities, engage in special projects and collaborative efforts. I don't know, Rob, anything else to add to that?
We will do webinars, on specific topics. Always kind of DPR 101 as soon as we launch in a marketplace. We'll do several of them, obviously, to give people opportunities. And we've had a lot of success with short videos. We've built up a series, kind of a tour of down payment resource. So again, short video segments that the MLSs distribute to their members, and they can click on it on demand and educate themselves in bite-sized pieces, or they can sit down and watch the whole thing back to back, which isn't that long either.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you for all that attended, and we will be, as a thank you gift, sending you a little bit of a follow-up with some more information about the program. And if you wanted to contact anybody, Rob Crane is the lead, of course, and if you're attending mid-year, I'm sure he'd be happy to sit down with you and take you through the program in more detail. Okay, with that, I think, go ahead, Rob.
I'm sorry, I was just saying we would love to do that.
Okay, great. And Rob, what's your email address if someone wants to contact you?
Two ways, either rcrane, and you can see on the screen it's C-H-R-A-N-E, so rcrane at downpaymentresource.com, or you can send it to info at downpaymentresource.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Okay, bye-bye. Thanks.